Opening scene, the creak of a wooden ship, waves crashing, and the faint sting of a needle on skin. A sailor winces as black ink bleeds into his arm, forming a skull that seems alive under flickering lantern light. On the surface, pirate tattoos were nothing more than ink on skin. But beneath each mark, each symbol, lay secrets so dangerous that entire navies feared them. These tattoos weren't fashion, they were codes, maps, warnings, even curses, and one wrong symbol could cost you your life. But what did they mean, and why did pirates risk everything to etch these mysteries permanently into their flesh? Before we unlock this forbidden language of the seas, let me ask you, would you dare wear the mark of death if it meant freedom? Comment your answer below. The skull and crossbones more than death. Everyone recognizes the infamous skull and crossbones, but for pirates, this tattoo wasn't just a generic sign of danger. Etched on the arm or chest, it told the crew and enemies alike this man has accepted death. It meant loyalty to the pirate code until the bitter end. But here's the twist, not all skulls were the same. Some had hollow eyes, some grinning jaws, others with flames rising from the sockets. Each variation carried a unique meaning. A man marked with hollow eyes, he had already taken lives. A flaming skull, he was sworn to burn ships until his own death. Imagine standing in a dark tavern, seeing that fiery skull glowing under candlelight. Would you sit next to him? Or leave the room? Like this breakdown of pirate codes, hit the like button. It lets me know you're ready for more hidden truths. But this was only the beginning. Some tattoos weren't warnings, they were maps to treasure. Keep the compass rose tattoos as navigation tools. Picture this: no GPS, no modern maps, only the stars above and ink beneath your skin. Pirates tattooed compass roses on their bodies not for decoration but as a spiritual anchor. It was believed that the compass tattoo kept them from losing their way at sea, or even in the afterlife. Some historians argue that these tattoos were deliberately drawn to point towards secret hideouts. A misplaced line, a subtle mark in the ink, could reveal the direction of an island no outsider should ever know. Was this superstition, or an actual encrypted map carried on the skin of a pirate? And here's the catch. British naval officers, when capturing pirates, would often strip them and study their tattoos for hidden messages. Entire raids were planned based on the lines of ink carved into dead men's arms. What do you think? Were they just superstitions, or real maps in plain sight? Let me know in the comments. But some tattoos carried darker secrets. Curses inked so deeply, even executioners hesitated to kill the man who bore them. The dagger through the heart. A heart with a dagger piercing through wasn't a lover's sign. For pirates, this tattoo marked a man who had been betrayed, someone who had lost trust and sworn vengeance. These men were often the most dangerous on board, willing to spill blood at the slightest hint of disloyalty. Eyewitness accounts describe such pirates as walking warnings. One sailor wrote in his diary, "The man bore a heart torn by steel. None dared cross him, for he bore his curse in flesh, and his oath was written in blood." Imagine facing such a man in the dim hold of a ship, his tattoo catching the glow of lantern light. Would you hand him your back? Stay tuned, because not all tattoos warned of betrayal. Some promised eternal damnation. The serpent and the cross. This symbol was rare, but chilling. The snake coiled around a cross, etched deep with black and red ink. Historians believe it meant the pirate had renounced the church and sworn allegiance to the law of the sea. To the devout, it was blasphemy. To the pirate, it was liberation. There's a recorded incident in 1718 where a captured pirate was hanged, but the priest who came to offer last rites refused, horrified by the serpent cross tattoo seared on his chest. Locals whispered that such men carried their curse even into death. But why would someone defy both God and king so openly? And what secret power did they believe the serpent gave them? Because the tattoos weren't just about faith. Some were about destiny, and the sea itself seemed to answer. The anchor bond with the sea. The anchor tattoo is still popular today, but for pirates, it wasn't simply a sailor's mark. It represented a vow. The sea would always be home. Once you bore the anchor, there was no going back to land, no family, no redemption. It was permanent exile. In fact, many pirates forced new recruits to get the anchor tattoo during initiation. Refuse the ink, you'd never be trusted. Some accounts say men were even held down, tattooed against their will, a mark of forced loyalty that could never be erased. Imagine that for a moment, your skin branded forever, not by choice but by the brotherhood of blood you were forced into. Would you accept it, or fight until death? But even darker was the mark that no pirate wanted to carry, the black spot. The black spot tattoo, inspired by legend and later immortalized in stories. The black spot wasn't always just a piece of paper passed in secret meetings. Some pirates carved it directly into their flesh. A simple black dot, often on the hand or chest, it meant one thing: condemned. Once marked, a pirate was as good as dead. The crew had voted against him. His fate was sealed. He was cursed to wander, knowing his own brothers would one day deliver his doom. And yet some men wore the black spot proudly, daring death itself. They became living legends, shadows of terror whose presence alone could silence an entire tavern. But why mark yourself with certain death? Was it defiance or madness? And this is only the beginning. Pirate tattoos weren't just skin deep, they were histories, codes, and confessions carved into flesh. But the deeper we go, the stranger it gets. Some tattoos weren't warnings or maps. Some were said to carry supernatural power, marks that sailors swore glowed in the moonlight, or bled when danger was near. So, are you ready to uncover the forbidden tattoos that even today send shivers down historians' spines? Stay with me. The next chapter will reveal designs lost to time, symbols that may never be fully explained, If you've made it this far, drop it in the comments so I know you're riding with me to the end of this mystery. And don't forget, hit like if you'd wear one of these marks yourself. The waves crash. The needle scrapes again. The scene opens with a close-up of a pirate's arm submerged in seawater. The ink glimmers strangely as though alive beneath the waves. Some tattoos were warnings, some were maps, but others were whispers from the unknown, marks that sailors swore were not made by human hands, but by forces that lingered in the dark waters beneath their ships. And these weren't the tattoos you could simply ask for in a tavern. They were earned, often in blood. The sea serpent mark, picture this: a massive coil of ink winding across a pirate's ribs, scales etched with fine lines that shimmered when sweat ran down the skin. This was the sea serpent tattoo, one of the rarest. Contemporary accounts suggest men bore this tattoo only after surviving what they called a devil's encounter. Storms so violent they believed something ancient had risen beneath the waves. The serpent ink symbolized not only survival but an unholy pact with the sea. One diary from 1722 records: the man showed his ribs to the firelight, and there curled the beast. The serpent was there, glistening as though wet, even though he was bone dry. He said he had seen the Leviathan and lived. Was this simply bravado, or were some tattoos meant to brand men as chosen by the sea itself? Would you wear such a mark, knowing it meant you'd forever belong to the deep? But that wasn't the only beast inked in skin. Some tattoos carried the wrath of entire nations. The crown and chains. Now here's where tattoos crossed into open rebellion. A crown wrapped in broken chains, burned into the arm or back, meant one thing: defiance against kings and empires. Pirates who wore this weren't just criminals. They were outlaws in the truest sense, rejecting monarchy itself. The British Navy called these men traders of skin. Captured pirates with this tattoo were often executed more brutally, hung in chains along harbors to serve as warnings. Yet, among crews, this tattoo made you a brother. It meant you'd never kneel to king or crown again. Imagine a ship where half the crew bore broken crowns across their backs. Every battle became more than plunder. It was war against the very idea of rule. Would you join them, or would the fear of empire keep your skin clean? But some tattoos weren't political. They were personal, wounds carved into flesh to remember what words could never hold. See the tears of ink in dark corners of port taverns. Some men bore a row of small teardrops tattooed along their cheeks. Today, teardrop tattoos carry their own meanings, but for pirates, they mark deep loss. A lost brother, a lost lover, a lost ship. Each tear was carved in black, sometimes blue, and never spoken of aloud. A sailor once wrote, "I bore 3 tears upon his face. None dared ask him why, for the room went silent when he turned his eyes upon us." The tears weren't just for mourning. They were also a warning. Here stood a man hardened by grief, someone who no longer feared death because he had already lost too much. Do you think tattoos should carry such permanent grief? Drop your thoughts below. Some marks, once made, never truly heal. And yet, there were tattoos that were said to heal instead of wound. The sun and waves. Unlike the darker symbols, the sun and waves tattoo offered a strange kind of hope. Etched across chests or shoulders, it symbolized rebirth. Sailors inked it after surviving shipwrecks, as though the sun had lifted them out of drowning darkness. One legend tells of a pirate who survived being marooned for 14 days, living only on rainwater and raw shellfish. When he returned, he had the sun tattoo carved into his chest, swearing the sea itself had given him a second life. Would you believe in such a rebirth mark, or see it as simple sailor's superstition? But next comes the most feared tattoo of all, one so cursed, even hardened pirates cut it off their skin. The devil's mark. Stories circulate of pirates who bore a simple mark, 2 black horns curling upward, often etched on the back of the neck. Called the devil's mark. It was believed to curse the man to victory in battle, but at the price of his soul. Some pirates claimed that those who bore it not die until their debt was paid. Others whispered that these men's bodies never decayed, even when left hanging on gibbets by the shore. Was this pure myth, or did some pirates truly believe their tattoos bound them to hell itself? One chilling account: the man laughed as the rope snapped his neck. He bore horns upon his nape. I swear to God his eyes were open 3 days after. A superstition or reality, the devil's mark was feared enough that even enemy sailors refused to touch the corpses of men who bore it. But not all tattoos were grim. Some carried the promise of eternal loyalty, a vow stronger than blood. The twin daggers, 2 daggers, crossed over one another, were often carved onto the wrists of close comrades. It was a bond mark, like a brotherhood tattoo. Pirates swore never to betray the one who shared it. To cut ties was to cut the flesh where the daggers met. In some cases, men even had their comrades' names etched beneath the blades. But if betrayal came, those tattoos became death warrants. Enemies targeted them, carving the daggers from their flesh as a sign of vengeance. But would you risk such a mark, binding yourself to another for life? Or would you sail alone, unmarked, unchained? The siren song. Perhaps the most haunting tattoo of all was the siren. A woman etched in flowing lines of ink, often positioned on the chest or arm so that her gaze seemed to follow anyone nearby. It symbolized temptation, danger, and fate. Pirates who bore this mark were said to have married the sea. They'd never settle on land, never take a wife, never live quietly. They were doomed to follow the call of the ocean forever. A tavern account notes: he raised his sleeve, and there she was. The sea made her hair long, her eyes black as tar. He smiled when asked if he'd marry. "I already have," he said. What do you think? Is the siren song tattoo a mark of love or a curse of doom? We've seen grief, curses, vows, even rebellion burned into pirate skin. but the deepest mysteries remain. Some tattoos were said to glow in moonlight, to guide ships, even to curse entire crews. Were these stories exaggerations or glimpses of a hidden code we may never fully understand? Stay with me, because in the final chapter we uncover tattoos so secret they were banned by law, erased from records, and feared even centuries later. And hey, if you're still watching, comment "never lies" below. It tells me you're one of the few brave enough to read these codes. Hear the sound of waves, then faint whispers as if from sailors long dead. Hay opening a candlelit chamber. Ink pots scattered, crude needles glinting. A tattooist's hand trembles as he draws forbidden marks on a pirate's skin. By now you've seen how tattoos told stories of grief, rebellion, and superstition. But the last layer runs deeper. These tattoos weren't for pride or fear or memory, they were for secrecy. For codes only pirates themselves could read, and once you know them, you'll never look at ink the same way again. The compass rose at first glance. A compass rose tattoo looks harmless. Sailors across centuries wore them to symbolize direction, safe return, or simple love of the sea. But pirates bent it into something darker. Hidden inside the compass lines were tiny symbols, dots, slashes, even reversed letters. These weren't decoration, they were maps. Micro maps, really coordinates burned into flesh. Captured pirates were sometimes tortured, and their tattoos shaved off, because navies feared they carried clues to hidden treasure coves or safe harbors. Imagine, the skin itself became the map, and death was the only way to erase it. What would you hide on your skin, knowing it might cost your life? Oh, but not all maps were of treasure. Some marked enemies instead. Some the mark of revenge. Among the most chilling tattoos was a skull biting down on a dagger. Simple to the eye, but each tooth etched into the skull represented a name. Enemies, betrayers, captains who had wronged the man. Every time revenge was served, a tooth was blackened with ash and ink. To see a pirate with a skull of fully blackened teeth was to look at a man who had crossed every name off his list. One Spanish log from 1718 noted what captured him. On his chest was a skull biting a blade. I counted 7 teeth darkened. He smiled when asked of their names and said, "Gone, all gone." Do you believe tattoos could hold such living lists? Or was this pure intimidation? A warning to the world. The angel of death. This one terrified even pirates. A black, winged angel tattoo, holding a scythe, carved across the chest. It was said to be a mark of men who embraced certain death. They'd charge into battles recklessly, fearless of cannon or sword. The chilling part, crews believed that when one bore the angel, death spread like plague through his ship. Superstitious men refused to sail with them. One eyewitness wrote, "When his shirt fell open, I saw her wings. Black wings, a scythe in her hand." Half the crew deserted that night, swearing they'd not sail with a dead man walking. If you saw a comrade branded with death itself, would you sail beside him or run? But not all forbidden tattoos were of death. Some were of power. The black sun, rare and sinister. The black sun tattoo was a circle of jagged rays inked in pitch black dye. Pirates whispered it symbolized eternal night, a pact with shadow. Authorities claimed it was just a pagan sun symbol. But pirate crews swore the mark made storms follow its bearer. Some even said compasses spun wild when near a man with a black sun carved into his chest. Was this just fear magnified? Or had pirates tapped into something sailors could never explain? Write in the comments, superstition or science? Would you dismiss it, or believe the sea carries forces we still don't understand? The crossed bones of brotherhood. Now here lies the most sacred of all. 2 bones crossed, sometimes beneath a heart, sometimes beneath an anchor. This wasn't just a pirate flag symbol, it was the tattoo of sworn brotherhood. Crews believed once you bore the bones, betrayal was impossible. To turn on your brothers after swearing the bones was to invite drowning. One chilling report, a man betrayed his captain. He bore the bones on his arm. That night, a calm sea took him. He fell overboard, and no hand could save him. Coincidence, or curse, but the rarest tattoos of all were the ones never meant to be seen. The hidden marks. Pirates sometimes tattooed symbols in places no one would ever notice. The soles of their feet, the scalp beneath hair, the inside of lips. These weren't for show. They were for secrets, names of safe ports, numbers to hidden ciphers, and sometimes prayers. One naval surgeon recorded finding words inked beneath the eyelid of a dead pirate. The letters read simply, "Hum." What kind of man burns a last word into the most painful flesh imaginable? Perhaps one who knew no other way to hold on to it. The legacy of ink. By now you've seen how tattoos weren't just decoration. They were survival, warnings, curses, maps, codes. Today we see tattoos as art, rebellion, or identity. But to pirates, each line of ink carried weight, a story that could decide life or death. Some bore their grief, some bore their rage, some carried secrets we may never decode. And perhaps that's the truest hidden meaning of pirate tattoos, not the designs themselves, but the silence that surrounds them. Because skin fades, bones rot, but stories ink themselves forever. So tell me, which pirate tattoo shocked you most? The serpent, the siren, or the devil's mark? Drop your answer in the comments. And if you've watched this far, hit that subscribe button, because in the next episode we'll uncover another secret history the world tried to bury. Trust me, you won't want to miss it. Final image, a ghostly hand, tattooed, reaching out from the waves before fading into black.